I spaced out there, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm live streaming. I need to do this thing. And yeah, so I do this little buffer between me streaming and going live, because otherwise there's like this discrepancy. It'll show me that I'm live before I'm actually live on YouTube, if that makes sense, like on the back end between OBS and the YouTube studio. So I'll be thinking that I'm live streaming or not realize whether or not it is actually showing me. So then I started rolling a buffer, because otherwise I was just sitting here for a minute like, is this thing on? So I've been starting with a fucking buffer, but the problem with that is I start spacing out. I'll put that buffer on and I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, hold on. And then like, hey, I'm here. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, so today is going to be more of a ramble conversation, and I'm going to timestamp it after, so that way you can just go see what points you want to hit real quick. But the reason that I feel like it's important for me to do this ramble, if you will, is that you can study all day and get technical skills all day from working for others, right? But you don't learn without certain experiences or having access to certain experiences. And sometimes in working, you get stuck in the experience that you're in, because you need to keep going to make money, and you may not have the opportunity to get to another experience to grow, right? And so there are intangible assets you can only learn through experience, and it may be through experiences you don't have. And so I think you can also learn these things through the teachings or stories of others in certain cases. Um, Now, on one situation, I don't believe just because you have studied or the lived experiences of others, or are told the lived experiences of others, that means you know what it's like to have that lived experience. But it can help you come to a better understanding of what that lived experience is, in order to apply it to the rest of your situation. And so that's why I share my lived experience with you, so you can process how it relates to your journey if you feel it does. So yeah, I did take some notes in order, just on terms of the points I want to hit, and some of the things I want to say, to try and keep me on a flow, somewhat of a flow. It's going to be kind of all over the place, but for me it's connected because it's my life. But to try and keep me in a rhythm. So what I'm going to do is roll my intro, and then I'm just going to talk at you guys for a little bit, read my notes, and we'll wrap up from there. Thank you. Hi, my name is Alexis, also known as Lexi or Deaf Child. I was born deaf, hard of hearing. I began doing business as Deaf Child 2013, marketing 2011, sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. My Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. Anyway, I'm here to bitch about whatever the fuck is on my mind. So here we go. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. So, in a nutshell, what I believe you can summarize my David and Goliath, Cookie Monster and Fishy situation would be, where I have some problems with them, is I think Cookie Monster has her hand in the cookie jar, Fishy is stinking the place up, and Goliath is stomping all over the little guy. Also, let's see. I believe that they are sacrificing long-term sustainability for short-term profits. Their short-term profits are coming in, but they don't have systems in place for customer service retention or sustainable intake based on the lead flow, which is another reason that I believe contributes to the overstimulation in the office. Now, the last live stream I did, I made some comments about the CMO and HR and managing partner, not just in the live stream itself, in my PR and PIP portion, but also in the comments. Like, I think a day later, I added some extra commentary, and I'm going to just, for the sake of transparency, repeat that here now. But I also want to say, that me speaking very bluntly about my processing in that situation, as well as in the comments there, these comments in that last live stream and in this one are the one and only time together that I'm going to straight up not care if I insult them. I haven't intended to insult them ever. And I didn't intend to do so in my last PR PIP video or now or at any point in any of my conversations with them. This is just one thing that I can see that could be perceived as that, even if I don't mean it to be, because there is a difference between intent and impact. So I can feel why, or if they feel insulted by anything I ever said, I can see why. But just insulting them was not my intent. My intent was to stress the gravity of how bad those mistakes and issues are. I don't know if they are or not. I don't know if they're a mistake or if they were intentional on their part. I can't speak to their intent. I can only speak to my experience, But it's what, those are mess ups. Whether or not they were intentional or mistake, those are mess ups. And those are very bad things. And I think, so if my colorful vocabulary was insulting, I don't mean to insult anybody. I do mean to stress the gravity of how bad those fuck ups are to me. So yeah. And these comments that I'm referring to, that I'm about to tell you what they were, that I made in the last, on the last video, you can go click and see, about the PR plan at PIP, those are the only time that I'm going to intentionally bring up their personal life. Many people, they believe in a separation between business and personal life. I believe our business lives are personal, and I have written about this on my blog. I believe oftentimes when people say that, they're using it as cognitive dissonance for what they're doing, for how harmful it is. For example, when people say ICE is just doing their job, But yeah, so I also believe if you put me down as a businesswoman without giving me constructive criticism, you insult me for no reason as a means of control. And because you have higher authority in your job role than me, so it is an abuse to make it personal on me in a work-centered discussion where I had never treated you that way while I was there, or in those discussions with you at that time. The closest thing is this video and that last video, and those are the only times I'm going to allow myself to stoop there. But the difference between us is I told you every problem I have with you. Meanwhile, you can't tell me what your problem is with me, but you want to try and act like me calling out the discrimination and fraud is as problematic as you doing those things. It's shameful of you. The only time I have used these types of words to you are in the content documented here for all to see. Other than that, I kept it cute. If you had treated me better, I would have also kept it mute. So those comments that I'm referring to that, perceptually I probably could see why people may be insulted by them or took it personal or see that as a personal attack, but I do believe that it speaks to a connection between the personal and business relationships. So what I said, message for the CMO. At the time of this comment, the fact that you filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy about 14 years ago, which was dismissed, is publicly available on courtlistener.com. If I understood that info correctly, which is why I believe you have a history mismanaging budgets, and I do believe your current use of marketing budget reflects a mindset that has not yet learned to manage money. No judgment for being broke. I am broke. My mom filed bankruptcy. Everyone deserves a fresh start. I just hope you realize that if you don't change your ways, you will keep having to restart or constantly be trying to dig yourself out of a hole. I hope you lay down a stable foundation to build from by revisiting training. And I linked again the Depeche Mandalia website on that comment. And I also said, because I was like, you know what, fuck it, about Fishy, since I'm putting it all out there, to the HR. Do you think the fact that you're on husband number 3, if I'm correct about that, is related to the fact that a high percentage of people you are involved with managing have a turnover rate of like 3 people a year? No judgment for divorce. My dad has 2 ex-wives, but that's part of how I understand how you handle your personal relationships can be indicative of how you handle business relationships too, and vice versa. For example, I absolutely believe the way the managing partner treated me as an employee is how he would treat or fuck over any relative or partner if they call him out as well. So yeah, and watching my dad and his relationships and how that impacted his business because of the way his business is built is another reason. I brought that up. It was not to be. I can understand, if it comes off as being bitchy, but it wasn't just to be a fucking bitch. It was to literally say, like, I think the cycles in our personal relationships impact our cycles in our business relationships too. And I have that lived experience on watching my dad in that. And so I just question and wonder if it's the same thing. But I could, be dead ass wrong about that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And then I also wanted to say, Louisiana is an at-will state. So I don't know what the fuck Fishy was doing, because all you literally legally needed was to give me no reason. Could have just said you're fired, that's it. You dug your own fucking hole for no reason. You didn't have to give me all these different back and forth blah 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 blah. Louisiana is a work at will state. So it's did not need to give me a reason. But instead you gave a bunch of different reasons, which is how I could then legally prove pretext. So, yeah. And on that note, I want to talk about how do you get help when you can't trust the people who are supposed to help you. And so I have, from experiences like this, and my other lived experiences with my assault, I have a lot of broken trust when it comes to the legal and mental health systems. And especially when you look at the history of those systems, they're both built on oppression. They're both built on taking away human rights. They're not built on helping people. And I think it's honorable to get into these industries to help people. And that's why I hope most people are in there to make a difference. But I don't think that you're going to be able to make a difference in these industries if you can't acknowledge the harm within these industries and the oppression that these industries are built on in order to better serve the community. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, whenever I start talking about these issues when it comes to colonialism, they say, well, if you don't like it here, leave. Bitch, I'm indigenous descent. And these are the same fucking people who are all trying to kick out the illegal immigrants. Then why the fuck don't you leave, bitches? Like, land back, bitches. And here's another fucking thing. What I don't understand when it comes to all of this political conversation lately is everybody's talking about what do we do? Everybody's talking about what other colonizer to go support instead. But whenever I say, how about you support tribal sovereignty, back up the tribes, support land back, all the white people are like, no, we need another colonizer in office. Like, you will not dismantle colonialism with more colonialism. And those are the same people preaching about decolonizing, yet they only want to uphold colonialism. And then when you talk about how tribal sovereignty is the key to decolonizing, they act like you're the crazy one. But anyway, apologies. But when I was assaulted, I believe in the reason, they were covering their ass legally. I don't believe they cared about what I was going through or about helping me. they were only treating me like a number, and they were only trying to cover their ass legally so no liability could come back on them. And by the time I realized and processed what happened, um, the statute of limitations was up for any sort of medical malpractice case. And that also, a lot of people, and this is not a pro GRB situation, because fuck that bitch, I'm not, I don't support the whole Gypsy Rose Blanchard situation. I do not support that at all. But a lot of people are like, oh, if you were medically abused, why don't you do a lawsuit? The statute of limitations for those cases, every case has a statute of limitations, and the statute of limitations for medical malpractice, I believe in most states, is about 2 years. So, like, she was in prison for 8 years, like, you know what I mean, like, and then to get a lawyer to take her case and all of that, like, that would have been like impossible, you know what I mean, in my opinion, from my experience in the legal field. I don't believe that that's like a realistic counter argument to whether or not she has been abused. I don't really care about whether or not she's been abused, to be honest. A lot of people like debating that. I don't really give a fuck. I think it's still wrong for her to have killed her mom. I don't care if she was abused or not. I've been abused. I haven't fucking killed anybody. But anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know how I got there, but mental health journey. And the reason I talk about these things is because of situations, like missing a murdered Indigenous woman, and these situations impact Indigenous women and Black women the most, but it can happen to any fucking woman. And I'm talking about, statistically speaking, within the constructs of the United States of America. I don't really know shit about the rest of the world, global history. I'm talking about the history I know here. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, these things can happen to any woman. And right now, with what is happening in our government, with what they're doing with rights, with how they're going after mental health, how they're going after women's bodies, I need any woman to pay attention to these things. These, part of what they will do, to harm you, is these types of situations, having people in your life. Like, so this is going to go into a trigger warning trauma dumping story. I'm going to try to highly generally summarize. But, in my situation, I had been sexually assaulted. And everybody was trying to convince me that being fingered without consent was not rape. They were telling me that I was lying because I was only fingered, so therefore I wasn't raped, is what they were saying. Even they would admit that I was fingered without consent, but they wouldn't admit that it was rape. And they were trying to get me to say that I wasn't raped and things like that, even though I believed I was. And so my mom and my twin and my brother kept hanging out with my rapist and my rapist apologist and all of that, and were pushing that narrative onto me. They were all talking about what I should be wearing, what I shouldn't have been doing, whether or not I should have been inebriated, and all of that. And when I got to a point where I was like, I would rather die than have you in my life. Like, do not speak to me ever again. Like, I was trying to cut my mother off. Like, I did not want her in my life at all. What she did was file a 5150. And since I was 16, I've struggled with ideations, so I had those ideations when I was 16 and I lived with her. I would express, like, well, my whole entire life, my mom has always told me she wishes I was dead. She would tell me, that she should have gotten an abortion. It would have been hilarious if she killed us. She just wishes we were dead. Our whole fucking life, she would tell all of us that she wishes we were dead. And she would isolate us from my dad. She was part of that. My dad didn't always show up either, so it's not like she just isolated us, but but he was also on his own mental health journey, and my mom's on hers too, but fuck them both too at the same time, but love them both, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm more mad at my mom, like, about a lot of things than my dad or my stepmom, though, because I feel like with my dad and my stepmom, they're very transparent. Like, yeah, you can be mad at them, but you know why you're mad at them. My mom, she's a shady ass bitch. She's gonna do you cannot be safe around her. You can't let your guard down around her. With my dad or my stepmom, you could let your guard down, because if they not decide to be problematic, but when they end up being problematic, you know what's coming, you say it's coming, it's right there. My mom, she will play nice to your face and stab you behind the back. Um, but so nobody thinks my mom is dangerous because they just see her as this like cute little white woman. She can do no harm, but she's so nice. But yeah, fucking my mom used the fact that I had ever been suicidal against me to then say that I had a gun, that I was trying to kill myself, and all of these things. I've never owned a gun. I do know how to shoot one. I have had access to them before, and my dad has guns, so I've shot guns, but I don't own one, and I haven't owned one, or haven't even shot one like a decade, but um, I haven't owned one ever, and all of that. And I wasn't actually trying to kill myself. I was actually making cheese fries when the fucking police showed up, and I had a friend coming over. We were gonna eat and chill. I just didn't want to talk to my mom anymore. I didn't want my family trying to convince me of these things, Um, and so the police came and they took me. They were not listening to me. And then they were asking me when they took me in for the intake at the institution under the 5150, they were asking me these questions under the DSM-5. But they were not asking me the questions as they're in the DSM-5. I went and I realized after, like, trying to figure out why were they diagnosing me with the things they were diagnosing me. Well, my mom told them I was unemployed, but at the time, I had clients and I was working for freelance for an agency. Even though I had these things happening and I could prove I did, I have the invoices and things like that, I have the emails, I can prove it. And I was trying to explain to them, go to nobledeafchild.com, that is me. They put that I was delusional. They put I thought I was deaf. My mom was trying to, like, they put, that's literally in my documentation. They put that I made too much eye contact, when eye contact and reading lips is huge in deaf community and deaf culture. That shows ableism. It shows they're not informed of deaf community. It shows no deaf access there. Like, if you know anything about deaf people, we need eye contact to know what the fuck you said. I need to read your lips. But that's why I don't shut up, because I didn't realize what was being done to me until it was too late. And I need other people to realize if things like this have happened to them to sound the alarm. My mom was trying to gain legal control of me, in my opinion. And so that way she could control whether or not I wanted to leave her space. Because she's been known to do that to all of us. And she's done it to my brother. And the reason I don't believe my mom actually wanted to help me, no time in my life has my mom ever helped me or support me with getting therapy or mental health or resources that it takes to get by and live. She will only, if anything positive about our relationship, she just wants to party. And she's called the police on me before. So I was in college trying to take my exams, and my mom wanted to come down and party, and because she lived in Mississippi. And I told her, Mom, I'm working right now. I'm in college right now. I cannot have this right now. And so she called the police, trying to get them to fucking force me to let her stay there, even though, it was my house. I paid all my bills. She doesn't pay shit. And I'm the one in college, and I'm the one trying to get by, because she just wanted to fucking come down and party and get drunk, and she didn't give a fuck about if I graduated college, And those are the types of things I've always had to deal with, and it's like, if I want to have a relationship with her, I have to be the bigger person. And so then I got to where, with the whole sexual assault thing, I'm like, I'm not being the bigger person anymore, bitch. Fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's important because, when a lot of us women are assaulted, we're around abusive communities who don't listen to us, and um, who will isolate us and further abuse us. And so that's why I don't shut the fuck up about my story. A lot of people are like, oh, well, if the people will use that against you, so you shouldn't talk about it. If they're going to use it against me, let them fuck it. Because I would rather tell my story and be able to help another woman realize what's happening to them, um, than say nothing. I think the fact that we all say nothing is how it keeps perpetuating. You know, whenever I started speaking out about my rapist, you know what did not help me, what caused me to spiral more? Other women were reaching out to me, telling me about, oh yeah, so and so abused me, so and so did this to me, so and so did that to me. And it did not help me because those were all people in my community. And all of these women were staying in the community and still partying with those abusers that they claim assaulted them. And I felt like it wasn't safe. And I felt like they weren't safe. They didn't want me to speak up, but they wanted to tell me about the abuse. And they wanted me to shut up about my rape, too. It was too much. It was too much. So, and, so that's my mental health journey, and with social issues, and it all ties into my sobriety as well, because I believe that the reason I was struggling with addiction so much is not only because my family history makes me more susceptible to it, but a lot of people have the family history of addiction and aren't addicts themselves because they're able to have a better mindset, and certain situations around them just don't lead them there. But a lot of us, when we have that history and we are engaging in substances, and we have that history, those two combine, when all of these types of events are occurring within our community, it can lead people like me to engaging in substances. And anytime we have an issue with feeling a sense of belonging in a community, that can be a big trigger for engaging in substances. Whether or not it's because we want to fit in and be like everybody else, or if it's because we are feeling like nobody else loves us the way we are, for whatever reason, like a lot of things. And speaking of that, like, I used to be on a dance team, and I started speaking out about that dance team not only because of the sexual assault community, but because also, like, I feel like what I was participating in was cultural appropriation and harmful as well. But at that point in my decolonizing journey, because I wasn't exposed to other cultures as much, I didn't understand how harmful my behavior was. Well, the same dance, the owner of the dance team, I don't think she means to be problematic, but she is. Like, she just messaged me an article about how surgeons are trying to cure and fix deafness, and she says, I hope this helps you. And I let her know that this was part of genocide and eugenics against deaf community, and hearing people wanting us gone does not help us at all because we are still here. So, like, I never fit in the places I am, you know? And I feel like people always want to change me. And the whole motto of the dance team that she owned was love you, love your body. Well, why are you trying to change me because of my body? But yeah, so I understand that when I discuss my mental health journey and social issues, that how people treat me and how they think I see myself can be leaning towards one way or the other. But for me, so Lieutenant Colonel Jim Webb, that I was telling y'all about, he would always say to me that perception is reality. And he would always say, you got to present well, tell your story, don't let others control your narrative. And so from working with him, I know how to organize and I know how to stay in line, but I don't follow leaders who have less integrity than mine. So, yeah. So, on that note, I want to get out of that trauma situation and just focus more on other stuff. So, and then, and speaking of Lieutenant Colonel, an ROTC type situation, in that program, I did over 200 hours of community service, and I got a little sticker on my diploma because of it. And I believe that's also part of why they gave me the Daughters of the American Revolution Award, was because of how many hours of community service I racked up. And so I learned also in that time, like the concept, like I saw how Colonel used community service over time. Because I remember being in middle school watching Colonel make the JROTC cadets come do certain events with us in middle school, and that's part of why I joined in high school, right? It was like a long-term recruitment strategy in a way. Well, he kind of does the same thing with elementary schools. Like, he makes a presence on all elementary and middle school campuses that could be sending kids to Riverdale. Things like that was what he would be doing with his community service. But in that aspect, depending on the situation, because sometimes we would be doing something that would call for an audience sign up, like we would do every year for Christmas, different types of Christmas toy drives and things like that. And we would have people sign up for like a raffle as part of an incentive to donate to the toy drive, things like that. So we would get people to give us their fucking toys and give us their information and blah blah blah. Well, those same type of strategies, I believe, is what businesses should be doing with their community service. A lot of businesses, they don't put community service as the forefront priority with the lead magnet as the back end. They prioritize the lead magnet and the signups, and they put community service on the back end. And I think it needs to be switched. If you switch it around, what you'll be getting instead, because right now when you're doing it this way, when you're having like a lot of people, you're just trying to get everybody's information. Every person's information that you capture in terms of their data, it costs you to store that. And in certain cases, the more data you have in general, the better, because conversion rates, eventually you'll get sales. But there's also, once you've reached a certain cap of volume of data, there's a point of detrimental return there. What you need to focus on is qualified buyers, because if you are wasting all of your resources on people who don't want to fucking buy from you, then you still have to pay to expand to store the data of the people that do want to buy from you. It's just wasting space. But if you focus instead on reaching the masses, serving the people, and then you're able to build those relationships with the people that actually want to continue a relationship with you, you're saving less, you're saving more money, spending less on the data that it takes to save their information, and on the employee expense it takes to funnel and generate that lead. Now, for some people, they get a high enough conversion rate because they have that much of a personality. Some people don't have a personality though, so and that's not to be rude, but and I just mean like how outgoing you are, not whether or not you're a fun person, because some people, they're amazingly fun, but they're just not outgoing. But yeah, like if you're not as outgoing as others, you're gonna have a very low conversion rate with that. Or if you don't have a team that actually wants to be at these events, that's actually there to connect with the people, you're not gonna have as good of a conversion rate as you would as if you were all just participating in the community. I don't know, my fucking captioner ain't working right now. Whatever. But yeah, okay, so speaking of being part of the community, I have also previously mentioned, about how it was a lesson for me to consider where I had dropped that PR firm to go with this law office. Well, I also want to say part of the reason that I felt so comfortable to do so was 3 of us were hired for my position at one time, and they were only going to keep one of us after a certain time period. I don't even know what that time period was. I just know there a certain time period, they were going to let go 2 of us anyway. And so I didn't feel like they were fully committed to me, and so I didn't really feel like I was breaking a commitment when I did that. You know what I mean? So that's another thing too. Like, when I do have more of a commitment, it does matter to me to put in 2 weeks. Like if I knew that, for example, like that if I leave this job, they're gonna be fucked. Like I wouldn't just go without a 2 weeks notice. But in that case, I feel like I was just like an extra little budget cut that they didn't have to do later. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like something that was going to negatively impact that business, in my opinion, as far as I knew. But yeah, but like it was just going to make it easier for one of those other 2 to get the gig permanently, But yeah. And so, speaking of working for or with agencies, next I want to go on a ramble about my thoughts of the CMO in context to marketing agencies and marketing. So no agency does free work, and most small businesses can't afford an agency. So why is that? If an agency can grow your sales, why don't they take businesses from 0 to, for example, 100 million, whatever, who have no ad budget? Like, why can we only help those with an ad budget? If you have a proven offer already making sales, the only way to fuck up that system is to either have something broken on the back end to not support the customer service side, or spend more money on acquiring leads than is sustainable for long-term profitability. If you have a system with sales already running, no marketer can fuck that up unless they are mismanaging your funds or giving you advice that will harm your reputation. If you don't have enough money to do ads, it takes so long to get there organically that there is no guarantee for an agency it will be worth the investment, as we cannot control all the other factors which might cause you to not make it. So we have to be paid to work based on our value up front, or we can't do it long-term sustainably, just like no restaurant can give only free food and stay profitable under capitalism. The thing about the legal niche is you typically have qualified buyers on marketing based on budget, authority, need, time. Many marketers go into legal advertising not because they have a passion for law or community service, but because it is very easy to profit off of lawyers. If that serves the community in the long run, then I don't give a shit whether or not they have a passion for the industry. But when they disregard the law altogether, I feel that makes for a marketer who is taking advantage of lawyers without care for if the community has access to legal services. I recognize that brand merchandise can be very useful, but another concern, on top of the user experience that I discussed before for this, is that advertising guidelines have rules against giving anything of substantial value to non-clients, especially if it could be seen as a reward for a possible referral or a reason to use the firm. This is a rule for public safety and also public perception of the attorneys. So yeah, my mind is like a standard and learning to drive one. And I thought working there would be a lot like figuring out my clutch engagement point in terms of when I was in the office in that moment, I thought it was just like I was stalling out, and if we just, kept trying, would get the clutch engagement point and take off, And I think going from working for a business to owning one is also a lot like that. And on that note, marketing is a lot like driving a car. If you have enough money, anyone can keep a business through marketing going, just like anyone knows how to drive an automatic or a standard after they get it in gear. But not everyone knows how to drive a standard. And just because a marketer isn't running you off the road doesn't mean they are taking you the direction you want to go. And random shit like the fact that I know how to drive a standard is why I had said before that 9 times out of 10 I know more than my peers. Because most of people my age cannot drive a standard. Also, most people are not deaf. Most people are not a twin. Things like that. I have lived experiences that most people don't have. I don't think I'm smarter than anyone. I just think that you don't know what an experience is like if you haven't had it. You know what I mean? And there's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot of experiences I haven't had. So sometimes whenever I feel like I'm doubling down on my own lived experience, people may think that, oh, I'm a know-it-all, and that's not that I'm like that, because I think I'm a dumbass about a lot of fucking things. But when I know something, it's like I know it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's like also you can change my mind if I'm presented with the evidence or something to change my mind. I can change my mind about things. Not to say that I'm not unchangeable, but I'm very set when I do feel grounded in something. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. I think that I covered everything that I wanted to cover today. I really just wanted to follow up on the scope of, thought leadership and community representation when it comes to mental health, when it comes to business relationships, when it comes to thinking about advertising. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not really going to sum up this live stream because what is there to really sum up other than to say, hey guys, I just rambled for a bit about my life and shit. But I do hope that, like some of these lessons or stories that I've shared can help other people either not make the same mistakes I've made, not make the same mistakes people I've talked about have made, or help people, like process what is happening to them when they're going through it so that they can have more control in the situation and understand and better prepare for what they can do to help themselves, But yeah, so thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. Hope everything goes well for everybody and shit like that. And yeah, bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.